It's a very nice computer. It's a very...
So is Apple shooting themselves in the foot by removing Java then?
I think you can still get it back if you need it, and I'm sure some things will do so. Here's the thing. In OS 10, very much like with Windows, more things are built on the proprietary framework than they are Java these days. So it's more .NET and C# than it is Java on those platforms today, and a lot of people have made that transition. So what they'll be shooting themselves in the foot for largely would be legacy stuff, and they will be closing some security holes. And I really do think, good or bad, right or wrong, that's the direction the industry is going as a whole. But like James is saying, it's a good foundation. It's a good thing. Provided, and there's a condition I'm going to put on what you're saying, and that is provided you're in a class that is actually going to teach you Java and not teach you how to code Java using some proprietary software development suite.
That's actually one of my reasons. Java has some of the... You can get a Java tutorial online and books that are... There's very good Java books that have nothing to do with IDEs. And I've read a lot of them. Java has some of the best books for learning that I've seen. Rather than a lot of books for other languages are kind of complicated, but yeah. From what I've read, the best programming book I've ever learned for learning a language was a Java. But I've read some for C and Python and all those different things, but yeah. So yeah, you can get a lot of free ones online that don't have to do with the ID, but I totally agree with you. I'm learning web design as well right now, so HTML and stuff like that, and what we're learning is how to use, we're not learning web design, and it's kind of making me pretty mad.
I missed what tool they're teaching you how to use. You broke?
Hello?
I can hear you now. You broke. You said we're learning, and then there was a break in the line, and then you got mad.
Oh. No, I'm learning, and what we're learning how to use is Dreamweaver. We're not learning how to actually, design. We're not really learning how the code works as much.
And honestly, that means you're dependent on Dreamweaver now. It's like you can't actually write HTML. This is something that pisses me off about so many programming and scripting language classes. It's like you're not teaching the program language or the scripting language. There's a junior college up the road here, and I can't hire anybody who's learned anything from there, because the way they teach JavaScript is they take them to a site that sells software for $50, but they download the free version and teach them how to use this free software to create a JavaScript menu. So they don't know anything about the actual files. Like, if you're gonna do that, at the very least, take them to somewhere like dynamicdrive.com, download the menu there, where you actually have to get in and mess with the files and see, oh, this does this does that, yada yada yada. It's like the people that come out of that place, they think they know what they're doing, and honestly, they can't create anything except something that's largely already created for them, which means they don't know anything. They're of no use to me. I have to sit down and teach them. I don't have time to do that. It's like, it's actually I have to unteach them, then I can teach them. It's like,
Yeah.
Like, and we should point out that this Trojan is a Trojan that you have to interact with. It's like it won't just.
I'm glad that when I first was learning JavaScript, I had no idea about all these pre-built stuff. So I just learned from W3 Schools, which is a great place.
Yes, W3 Schools is a wonderful resource. The only problem I have with W3 Schools is that if you know absolutely nothing about any scripting languages, it's hard for a lot of people, depending on how you learn, to get the overall shape of things. It's like, because it's like I can tell people who learned 100% from W3 School, and they create weird looking code. There isn't really anything wrong with it, but it's one of those, you can tell they've cobbled together this lesson and that lesson and that lesson. Those people are not useless, because you just point out, okay, make this change and do this because Google will not like this here, and you need to put this in XHTML version instead of HTML version because they really don't like when you mix those. But it doesn't say that anywhere on there. It's like
that is a problem with me. A lot of times I'll make and it'll work, and my friends are like, I don't understand any of this. This is not the standard for doing this.
Well, no, it's like it's one of those quote unquote grammatically correct thing, and that yes, the code works, but it's like, what were you thinking? It's like,
and I'll do that.
It's like spelling words.
Yeah, so you're right. You're totally right.
There's a brain fart in here, okay? Everybody else lets it go. But yeah, I can't spell worth a shit. Alright. It's like, I need my doses. Dose, you know what I dose? It's like...
Yeah. I'm hearing an echo.
There's a little bit of one now. Okay.
It comes on randomly.
Yeah,
it's not his.
Yeah, that's weird.
At least the internet works.
Yeah, at least the internet's working. Maybe the echoes was keeping it working. That's it. Okay. Leo, you're going to have to take the lead on this one because I haven't actually heard... Like you were explaining this before we started the whole... Apparently, Apple deliberately broke the 3Gs. I'm like,
That's what the person suing them is accusing them of. I don't think...
Is this just one nutter, or is this a class action?
Fact, but the idea is that Apple is being sued because iOS 4 completely broke the previous models of the iPhone 3G specifically, and because of that, whoever's suing them thinks that they just didn't take the time to make sure that it would work with iPhone 3G, so that everybody would be forced to upgrade to the iPhone 4, and they think that that's unfair. So that's the basics of it.
I'm wondering if this doesn't have more to do with like the bug Tiny had with his iPhone all the time, where if he did syncing using anything but the Mac version of iTunes, it would break the phone. Did
that bug surface in iOS 4? Because everything that I'd read said that the iPhone 3G would, once it received the iOS 4 update, would become sluggish and unusable.
I don't think he ever actually did that update to his iPhone, because at that point he was switching to Android, and he was just kind of like, he kept the iPhone around just to kind of play with it, and he's now...
Wait, who is switching to Android?
My roommate. He's
in some of the earliest videos.
Yeah, it's like he had an iPhone. He's now switched to Android. But it's like one of the reasons he got rid of his iPhone was because every time he synced, he did the iTunes syncing, his phone would brick. If he like tried to play a song, it would brick. It's like the phone would just crash. And the only way to fix it was to plug it into the Mac version of iTunes and do a restore. That was literally the only way to fix the phone. Every time he synced on Windows, it would brick the phone. And he never could figure out what app it was that was causing this problem. It's like some weird coalition. If you have app A and app B and app G installed and you make the mistake of syncing, it bricks the phone. Maybe the
iPhone just can't handle a Windows compatible file system.
It's something to do with the difference between the Windows version and because it's like he would do a restore on the Windows version of iTunes, and the phone would work until he did thing X, and then it'd be screwed up again. The only thing that fixed it for good was taking it over to the Mac version of iTunes and doing a complete restore over there. A restore on the Windows version would only work temporarily until you re-triggered the flaw. It's the same function. The only difference was whether it was being run from the Windows version of iTunes or the Apple version of iTunes. It's one of those things, and I would argue the same type of stuff with that. I think it was just an oversight. There's a little bit of voodoo that goes on with iTunes on OS X because it's OS X. Because Apple has complete control of the OS, and it's their OS, and they made it so they do things a little differently over there, and as a result, there's some voodoo there. It's one of those things. I don't think it's intentional. It's just one of those things. Why did you not spend as much time on the platform that accounts for over 80% of the users of this software?
Do you think? So you don't think that's intended?
I think it's just a lack of caring. I don't think it's malicious. I think it's just they didn't put as much effort into it because they're like, well, they should be using a Mac. It's like,
do you think that every update breaking Linux compatibility is intentional?
Yeah, I think that's intentional. The only reason I say that is because there have been at least 7 updates pushed out that had no other purpose than to break Linux compatibility. I could understand if there was some incremental update that just happened to break Linux compatibility, when the only thing, and I literally mean the only thing changed, is the ability to work with Wine. Yeah, that's deliberate. There's no... I can't see any gray there. I can see gray with the Windows thing. I'm like, okay, it's not your OS, you don't have absolute control over it, and you didn't feel like spending extra development time on making a product work well over here. While I don't agree, I can understand. I think it's just stupidity on their part, not any malicious nature. On the 3G thing, I don't know. It's like, I've heard about this because he didn't upgrade his. I can't speak on it personally. Like if I do the next iWorld we do, or if we get that other Mac guy in, I'll ask that. Have you upgraded your 3G and did it work right? That's yada yada. So